Or like 1,000 years in the future.
Exactly.
And the life that I thought I've lived is a fiction. I've never lived this life. It's always been Sonic. Welcome to Video Game Podtimism. It is the Optimist video game variety show where two best friends talk about the wonderful world of gaming.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Chase.
Hi, my name is David.
I really did not have an intro that time. Sometimes I just fly into the intro of our podcast because like have a lot to say about video games.
Yeah.
This time I was like driving down the freeway at 40 miles an hour, just now barreling into the introduction of our podcast, and I had nothing. It was just a dark, blank road with nothing out there.
You were driving down the freeway at 40 miles an hour?
That is kind of slow, isn't it?
You're a hazard for going too slow at that point.
Yeah, that's not fast enough.
That's not fast enough at all.
That's not fast enough.
But I see what you're saying. saying.
The metaphor is weak, but the spirit is there.
Yeah, you had the right spirit for it. Didn't
have an intro, but you know what I do have, David?
What?
Video games.
You have them. You own them all?
Yeah, I got it. I actually bought all of them.
How much would that cost to buy every video game ever?
I bet a lot, but I bet less than it should. Because my first instinct was like, that's probably like at least a couple of countries' GDP to buy every single video game. Do you need to own it physically? Because that's going to like boot that price up real easy.
I mean, I guess it depends. It depends. Like Steam has like a stipulation on there, like, hey, you don't really own this game, though, right? So I mean, you have to have like actual legal ownership of it. We'll say that.
Yeah, shit, man. I mean, it's gonna be expensive.
It's gonna be real expensive.
It's like $10 or something, right?
At least $10 whole.
You can probably get like a voucher for Nintendo's Switch Online, and that'll probably do it, I think.
From Shigeru Miyamoto himself, from Papa Nintendo.
Yeah, he'll spot you a couple of them at least.
My dad's Nintendo, actually, so just give me all the games.
Do you wanna talk about games first, or should I?
I don't know. Are you burning? Are you burning on some games right now?
Kinda. I got some video games I would like to talk about.
If you need a sweet release, by all means.
Yeah. Why don't I go first this time?
Yeah. Change it up.
A little special treat for me.
Christmas came early for Chase.
So I really only have two, because I'm like, so here's the thing. Mm-hmm. I feel like I am spreading myself thin with a lot of these games.
Yeah.
Like I'm still playing Baldur's Gate. I'm still playing Alan Wake.
Yep.
I have there's just like a bunch of shit that is piling up that I'm like, I should continue playing that.
An embarrassment of riches.
Yeah, but I also don't have any more cool podcast thoughts to say about them and until I've like really beat them, I feel like. But there are two things that I wanted to talk about.
Oh, sure.
The first of which is Warioware Move It,
Ooh,
David.
Did you get it? Are you playing it? I
am playing this game. This is a new Warioware game for the Switch. Somehow this is the 11th one, which I was...
Wow.
It was sort of a hex of knowledge. I was cursed to know that. I don't always want to make our podcast, I'm a millennial and my bones hurt, but like that was definitely a bone hurt moment.
Deep into the marrow, that one.
Yeah. Because like what value does that add to the conversation, you know? I feel like I see that sentiment so often on the internet of like, dude, I'm so old. And like, if just like, what are we doing with criticism that is the thought?
This game made me feel so old and I felt bad and then I went back to adulting with my doggo.
Like are you just looking for like an emotional outlet? Because that's okay. But like give me some criticism here. What is it? How is it different at all?
What does the pedigree of this storied franchise say about it at this point?
Yes.
Is it in conversation with itself?
Exactly. Yes. But no, it's just another Warioware game.
Yeah, I was about to say.
So this is, so far as I understood it, a kind of direct sequel to WarioWare Smooth Moves for the Wii. Mm-hmm. And I think you kind of got that from the marketing. It was much more like physically involved than Get It Together was, which was the previous WarioWare game. And, you saw people striking poses and doing mini games as you do in WarioWare, which I should back up and say WarioWare is a ongoing series wherein you're tasked with like completing these levels And every level is essentially just a group of mini games that are thrown at you at breakneck pace, where if you've ever played a Mario Party mini game, it's like that, but they don't introduce what the game is.
Yeah, there's no practice. It gives you one word usually.
Yes.
About what to do, and you either you move the directional pad or you press a button, and that's about it.
Yeah. And I like that. I think it's really, really fun. And it leads to these situations where you almost get like a setup and punchline of how ridiculous the shit that you're doing is. Or even just like the verb that you're given before you do a mini game is like bump. And then it shows you a person with their butt out. And you have to there's a big snowball behind you and you have to bump it with your butt. That's funny. That's good.
That's great.
That's great. But I actually I was thinking about how challenging it would be to do a WarioWare game on the Switch without really defining how you do the mini games. But they have somehow solved for that by essentially giving you a bunch of stances that you start in.
I saw this. So you have 8 stances and that just tells you the stance and you do the game.
Yeah. So if you pull up to one of the games, on one, it'll say, all right, get in the knight position, which is you hold the Joy-Cons kind of on top of each other like a sword, or big cheese, which is you put the Joy-Cons on your hips and you stand.
That's great.
It's really, really funny.
That's great.
And it's so coded in WarioWare stuff of the names of the stances are all ridiculous. They have these other ethereal introductions to the stances where they give you some kind of history of the stance of this is the stance that the voice came down and gave to the people. It's just so fucking good.
Who's the narrator for those? Is it Jimmy?
I don't know, just some guy. It's not Wario. But they could have easily just made it straight down the middle of all right, put your hands on your hips and that is the stance. But no, they decided to call it Big Cheese, which it's really good. I really like that.
Awesome.
I didn't love Get It Together, the WarioWare game. And I think a lot of that came down to the fact that what they proposed with that game was kind of a different solve for the same problem of they gave you characters that you chose before you went into the mini games, and each of those characters could do one thing, right? So one of them was a guy who jumped. One of them could float around or move in certain directions or anything like that. And so you were kind of restricted on what kind of mini games you were playing. You could almost make it pretty trivial if you just chose the characters who had really good movement options.
Sure.
Because it just was a lot easier playing that. And so I get why they were doing it, but it felt very restrictive and it removed some of what I love about the WarioWare games in that I can't really see around the corner of what's about to happen. It's just a barrage of stuff happening to you.
It's a fever dream.
Yes, and that's the joy for me. It's 10 seconds of a full Katamari Damacy level or something like that. It's so quick. Whereas with that one, it felt I kind of could see around the corner to see what the next couple mini games
future sight
were going to be like. I had the future sight. I had the gift. And that just sort of stopped my enjoyment of it a little bit more than I was expecting. Whereas this one, it's very much a return to form of I don't know what's coming. Even if it tells me the stance, it's more of a starting point and you still have to figure out okay, what is it asking me to do really quickly and then execute on that rather than knowing kind of well, I'm going to jump and that's going to be the challenge. It's just really good. I feel like it's another one of those situations where if you've played a WarioWare game before, you know why it's good. And I will tell those people who have played those kind of games before, it's good in the way that you expect it is.
Yeah.
But for anybody who hasn't played one, I do think this is actually a pretty good example of a WarioWare game. There are a handful of those kind of games that I would suggest picking up first if you're new to the series. And I think this is one of them, which is kind of a relief. I was a little bit worried about the series.
Sure.
Just because like I said, I think the game or the series itself relies and thrives when it is creative and unpredictable.
Yeah.
And there's some entries in the series that get a little bit more predictable. And so that kind of takes away from the success of it in my mind.
Sure.
But this one, I think Twisted on the Game Boy is really good. And just the original still also really holds up. I think the one on the Wii, Smooth Moves, I think was good, but you could feel the restriction of the Wii Note.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't precise enough.
Yes. If it was just a little bit more precise, you could feel oh, this game would be really good. And I think this one is kind of delivering on that one delivering on that promise, because I think the Joy-Cons are actually precise enough to do a lot of the stuff that they were trying to do on that one. Which is really good. I could name a bunch of these. The one that like really got me when I was playing it last was there was like grab onto the correct hand and you're like in a pit and you have both your hands up and so you're like waving them around and there's like a couple of different things that come down. One of them is like a closed fist that you won't grab onto if you do. But then there's like a very jacked open hand that comes down. You put your arm into that and you grab one of them. And on the right side, there's like another closed fist and then a snake. And if you touch the snake, it bites you and you lose.
Oh my gosh.
And then another like open hand comes down. You grab that one and like two very big muscular boys pull you out of the pit. And that's like, you succeeded.
So good.
It's so funny. It's so like ridiculous. The art style, I will say, is also just like very core Warioware games where it feels like there are kind of realistic illustrations of people in these games. And also just like cartoon nonsense in them. It like, there is such a bizarre inconsistency to the art styles in these Warioware games that is really fun. And another thing that like kind of was tough about the last one is that the art style for the characters was very consistent. They just were like 3D renders of Warioware and these other characters in the game. And I think that kind of detracts from it. Like it is kind of this like fucking like Dada collection of art styles that are just like smacked together. That really works because again, you just can't really see what's coming, which is such a joy. And there's also the added satisfaction that you get from these games of after you've kind of experienced it and you've seen everything. The fun of a lot of these games is like going back and doing them really well and seeing how far you can get, which is still great. It's still really, really fun. I played this one with M as well.
Yeah.
You can play co-op through the story.
Ooh, nice.
Which is very fun. Also very, very good. I'm like, because I've had more exposure to this series, I feel like I'm like a little bit more prepared for the wild stuff that is going on. But something that I really like about this game is that it almost knows that like maybe you're the freak in your friendship and you're bringing in just like a normal person to play this game because they have this system where I think it's like a tag recovery or something like that. If somebody fails one of the mini games, sometimes it'll give the other partner a chance to also do it. And if they do, then the life that you lost by losing the game is recovered essentially. So it's kind of a way to offset the difficulty of the Warioware games if like not everybody has played one before, which I think is great. Like I think it could be really easy for you to play co-op and like maybe one person is still getting their bearings and somebody be like frustrated and not want to play anymore, you know? Like, but I think the kind of like similar to the Mario games where you could like turn into a bubble and just like float along for somebody who's like, okay, this is a really hard part. Let me just do this. Kind of a similar thing of it adds a little bit of like difficulty that you can recover from rather than just like being the punishing experience that it can be sometimes.
Gotcha.
It's great. I love it. I still love 8 volt or 9 volt or whatever the kid's name is the most.
All the old Nintendo games in there.
Yes. Yeah.
So good.
The like boss level I think is the slide from Mario 64 in the like ice level where you like slide down on your butt. You just have to do that. Really good. Right. Like that's
so
perfect.
simple.
That's really, yes, it's great. I'm really enjoying it and don't have a lot to say other than like, it's good. And if you're interested, check it out because it's fun.
Nice.
And then the other thing that I've been playing, the sort of like bigger endeavor that I've been trying is that recently I got a new VR headset. I got one of the wireless ones. And so I had a Oculus S that plugged into my computer a while ago, but I had nothing but trouble with it. It was I was constantly having connection issues. I had to like change the batteries every time I played out of the controllers because like they just drained them apparently. And it just felt like such a hassle to set it up and like get everything moving. And like, you know, if you have a PC, you will know that like if you try and do something with gaming, like you gotta fiddle with it and mess with the settings and screw with everything. And like, because I'm also not just playing VR on this system, it led to a lot of situations where it was just like, okay, let me figure out, troubleshoot it while I plug it in and go into the game and change all the correct settings. And like 45 minutes later, maybe I'll play a game or something like that. And like, I will say Half-Life Alyx was worth it for that.
Sure.
It was a really, really good game, but I just was having a lot of trouble. And the way that I imagined playing VR in a way that I enjoyed it was much more of a just toss it on and off kind of deal. And so I got one of these like standalone headsets, and one of I've been playing a lot on there, but the first game that I have like really been driven to talk about on the show is this game called Red Matter 2. It is this VR puzzle game, is essentially how it markets itself. And it's by this company called Vertical Robot. Very good name. Obviously, there was a game before this, but I did not play it. And I don't feel like it's required reading, at least for this one. Like, I still had plenty of a handle on what was happening in the game and didn't really feel out of my depth. But essentially the way that this game works is that you take control of this person named Sasha, who is this agent who like has somehow taken control of somebody's body in this science facility in space, which hell yeah, and is being led around by this like person in your ear who's like, hey, I woke you up. We have some stuff to do, namely finding this friend of yours who like has gone missing essentially. And so that's pretty much your goal throughout the at least the parts that I have played. I think I'm like halfway through the game at this point. I've played it for probably like 3 or 4 hours. And yeah, I mean, it's essentially a puzzle game, right? So like you will show up to any given situation, and most of the challenge is just like, how do I proceed? How do I continue moving through here? We were talking about escape rooms before we started potting, and I will say that there are a lot of this that feels like an escape room, right? Where like you're just kind of like entering into a physical space and trying to assess like, what is the problem here and how do I solve it? Yeah. I think the joy of a lot of these VR experiences for something that like is a little bit more traditional than, you know, a really out there idea for a VR game. Like I would say an escape room is kind of a like more normal idea for a VR game. But the things that they do really well is that like this game has a very cool sense of style. You keep going to these bases that were at some point owned or operated or still are by this, I think, country named Volgravia, which is like very like space race age USSR kind of design. And I like it's just all very fun. The design of the places are very fun. Like all the iconography that they have, just the physical design of the place that you're in feels like very neat to be inside of. Again, you're like in space and you're on these like very hostile planets. And so you're most of the time indoors, but you can kind of like peek outside and check out space, which like, again, in VR looks so good. It's so cool to look at space in VR.
That's awesome.
It's so neat. Cool. Like, yeah, it's something that just isn't communicated as much in 2D. Like it's cool, right? Like staring out the window of the Normandy is like neat and cool, but it's very different when you feel the scale of it, right? Yeah. One of the earlier planets you're on, it has like rings around the surface of the planet. And like you feel the scale so immediately of like, you look up and you can see the rocks that compose this ring around the planet. You can see them individually, but you know, as it goes farther away, it becomes less clear, but it's hard to describe, but you really feel it in a way that the 2D games just don't really communicate. There's a presence physically there.
It encompasses you. Your whole field of vision is the game.
Yes. Yeah. So I think immersive is the right word, but it is more than immersive in the way that traditional games are immersive, right? It is physically immersive. You are in this space, which is not new for anybody who has played VR, but it really does bear repeating when, you know, not everybody has these systems. They're pretty expensive. So I think selling it on that is really a big part of it. Because for me, I'm not somebody who stands around in console games and just like looks at the environment a lot of the time. I'm kind of just like directly going for whatever the goal is.
Ding boy.
Yes. Yeah. I'm focused on the result. And that's not true for everything. There are definitely games where I like stop and take a look around, but I do it so much more in VR, where I'm just like, I enter into a room and I'm like, God, I got to look at everything in here just because it's so cool and it's so well considered, especially in this game. So yeah, I think the design of it's all very good. And there's a couple of things in here that I think they do really, really well. One of them, which is just like almost a logistical, but really necessary fix for me, is that typically in first person games, a lot of the control schemes are based around like teleporting or warping somewhere. Like you'll point your controller somewhere on the ground, click a button and your character just immediately transports there, right?
Sure.
And that is a solve for motion sickness.
Yeah.
Because if you move your character just normally, even just a little bit of discrepancy between seeing that and not feeling it can be incredibly disorienting. And I was like in that group that the like one time I tried to play like a game where it was like a moving first person shooter, I was like, oh, I'm gonna barf immediately. Like it felt so bad. But this thing does two things. One, your character doesn't move that fast. And so like you're not like peeling around corners like you would in Titanfall 2 or something like that.
Oh,
you know,
God,
like it's not
Barf City.
not that quick. But they also have this option for this thing called blinders, where essentially when you move your character with your left stick, so this one you have the option of not doing this teleportation movement. You can just move your character like you would in any other video game with like your body on the left stick and then your sort of like horizontal rotation on the other stick. But anytime that you move either of those, your peripheral vision closes a little bit.
Sure.
And so it looks like there's just literal blinders being put onto you for a hot second as you're moving.
Whoa, we're horses.
It's very strange. And it looks like you're like for a moment, like maybe looking through like a tube or something like that, like a paper towel tube. But it really helps. I played this for like 3 or 4 hours straight and didn't get motion sickness. And I was really surprised by that because you are moving around a lot. There's also like a jetpack that you have to navigate with.
Oh, wow.
And so like moving up and down, I was like, oh, I'm going to definitely get sick in here. I'm just not really. It happens every now and then. Like I notice it when I'm trying to get up very close to an object and like maybe something is just out of my physical reach. And then I move my character just a little bit forward and everything kind of comes really close to my face all of a sudden. For whatever reason, that still kind of gets me. But just the sheer navigating through a physical space didn't bug me as much, which like was such a relief because the teleporting thing, while cool, it really does kind of detract from the experience. Like, especially if it's in a situation where there is like danger or combat, because a lot of the time you can just like teleport away and you're not in somebody's like business anymore. Yeah. And so the threat of physical danger is kind of pulled off a little bit. And just like, you know, that's not how people move. That's not how I understand the world. So like it definitely reminds me while I'm playing it, like I'm playing a video game. But with this, I'm allowed, like, it feels like my mind is allowed a little bit to step into this character just a little bit more. So to speak on like how you actually play this video game, like I said, it's a puzzle game, but you have a couple of tools with which to like interact with everything. Both of your character is holding these tools in his hand, and by default they're just like grabber tools. So like you can just like pick up and move shit in the world, which again, just on its face is so cool. That's such a cool thing to be able to do in VR, of like walk up to something and pick up a bottle and just like throw it across the room. Like that's, so it still hits. It's still really cool. It reminds me a lot of like those first few years of 3D games where it's like still just neat to be able to wander around in 3D. You know, like
wow, look at technology.
Look at it. This is cool. This is a novel experience. So that's all really great. But you also have a like scanner in your left hand that if you like press it against something and press scan, then it'll like read out on this little like screen, here's what this thing is, right? And so it has a little bit of kind of that like Metroid Prime vibe of like wandering around and trying to figure out what everything is. And of course, because you're in this Volgravian base, everything is in like, I don't know if it's actually Russian, but it is like kind of pseudo Russian. Yeah. So you can't read a lot of the shit. So you kind of have to go up to something and figure out like, what does this object do? But I think to give an example of one of these puzzles, one of the earlier ones that kind of like got me in the headspace of like, I see what this game is doing now, is you come into a kind of a big room and there are like 3 doors that you can go down. One of them leads you into like kind of a locker room, and you pick up some like, you can again open lockers and shit. Like there's a lot of stuff where it's clear like that is something I can interact with. And so you go open the locker and check out like whose shit is this? And sure enough, it's like one of the people that you're trying to find. And again, I can't emphasize enough how cool it is to be able to like squat down and look in somebody's locker and be like, oh, there's something hidden underneath like a pile of stuff, you know? that's just like, that's cool. And I
dirty
think
socks out of the way.
Yeah, exactly. There was like a chessboard in the way of something that I like pulled out and like opened the chessboard and was like trying to dump it out to see if there's anything in there. No, okay, like I'm gonna look elsewhere. But you find like a key card in there, and then there is you go to like another part of the room. One of the doors is locked, and it's like, hey, you can't get through here yet. And there's another door that is locked, but it says, hey, you can open it if you just like use the terminal next to you. You go over to the terminal and it's broken. And you're like, okay, well, that sucks, but how can I fix this? And the game doesn't tell you this, but if you just kind of like look around the room, you will find that there are these like very basic kind of schematics for a replacement computer for like a terminal.
Sure.
And so you look at it and it's like, it looks like a Lego set, right? It's like, here's the 4 pieces that you need to assemble to like replace it. But it's such a cool thing to be like, oh, okay, I need to replace this to fix this problem. So let me go look around for those replacement parts, right? And so you might find like, okay, here's a spare screen, or I just opened up a box physically and there is like the housing for it. And then you have to physically sort of like mesh it together to make it work, and then carry it over to the terminal, take the old one off and put this one on there, right?
Yeah.
And then it opens up, right? Like you're able to get through the space. And so that's probably one of the more like basic puzzles that it has, but it's stuff like that where you kind of just have to look at your surroundings and figure out like, how do I proceed through this space now?
Yeah.
Which is just awesome. It's so cool and so neat. Again, if you were playing this on a console, I think this game would feel pretty simple.
Sure.
Just doing these things with the controller, I think would be like, yeah, this is cool, I guess. But yeah, like it's not really groundbreaking. But because it is in VR and you're doing all these things with your hands, you're having to like, there are multiple times where I like got down on my like, squatted down to take a look at something, or like I got on my tippy toes to try and like touch something up high or something like that. That it just really works. I think all that stuff really works really well. There are like a bunch of puzzles where you have to like rotate something with your hands. And so you're just like turning knobs and shit like that.
That's cool.
It's very, very cool. I really, really like it. And I think it is doing enough with the story that I'm still kind of like compelled. It's like kind of mysterious and strange, and the titular red matter does show up at some point and kind of like fucks with your perception in certain spots, which like it's playing on a similar fun idea with like Control, where it's like changing the continuity of a physical space of, you walk through a door that you thought went somewhere and it goes somewhere else. Which again really works in 3D because your brain is expecting like, I know what's through there, more than when you're just playing that on a TV. So all of that's really great. I think that this is one of the better VR games I've played, period. Again, my list is short at this point, but I think everything that it's doing is doing like it's very thoughtful about the way that it's giving you these puzzles. And it does feel like an evolution of like what games can be with VR. I will say that playing this game also really reminds me that like it feels like there's still so much room to grow with VR. It reminds me a lot of that era of like kind of like NES and SNES era stuff where like people are pushing on the mechanics of games really hard. And so you see a lot of like mechanical evolution very quickly, but like the genius works of art haven't quite hit yet, Yeah. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that Super Mario World wasn't fucking amazing, but like if you are thinking about like what can games specifically only do, right?
Yeah.
That the games like that, I think there are some of them in that era, but you see it a lot more in eras after that. That kind of feels like where we're at right now with VR. I feel like you kind of get closer to that with like something like Before Your Eyes, the VR game, which is like really novel, and I would really recommend checking that out if anybody has any VR headsets. But it's really, really great. But I can sort of feel it, right? Like it reminds me of that era, and having lived through it, going from SNES to PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 2 and GameCube and Xbox and all that shit, and seeing how these games evolved and leveraged the medium to like such a great degree, it does feel like I just feel like there's more potential out there still, that because it's still so physically and mechanically focused, we're still kind of figuring it out, right? Like the blinders thing is new for me.
Gotcha.
It may have been around much longer. I'm not sure because like I haven't had a VR headset for very long, but like while we're still figuring that out, I'm still kind of waiting on bated breath for like, what's the one that's going to hit, what's the Metal Gear Solid 2 of VR?
Sure. Do you think that they need to create more interactivity within VR? Like, do you need to have a glove that like renders each finger individually so you can actually have all the different abilities of the hand? Right.
I think, weirdly enough, I think Alex does that with some controllers. Like there are some controllers that will track your fingers specifically, but I don't know if it's a mechanical or hardware upgrade that is necessity right now. I think like this is still, as it was at the time, kind of a software challenge of like, how do we make something that is pushing on VR specifically? And, you know, you're probably going to see similar stuff with how video games got pushed, right? Like taking into consideration like agency and choice and playing with those kind of themes and stuff. And again, you see it a little bit, right? I think you see it mostly mechanically, right? Like the clearly most of this game is stuff that you can only do in VR. You could probably do it with a controller if you just pressed X to pick something up, but it is, you can't do it in the same way that you do physically. In VR, right? Or it wouldn't hit as hard, I should say. And the same thing with Before Your Eyes. I think that one is pushing on kind of the story, the effectiveness of VR storytelling. But like I said, I feel like there is more here. And I really hope people are like willing to explore it enough. And I think people are, but just kind of seeing like what's the most popular shit, right? It's mostly mechanical experiences. It's a lot of just like, here's a sword, go beat the shit out of some people. Yeah. In the same way that it was in PlayStation 1 era, right? It was mostly just like fun simulators, go kick some ass or something. There's another game that I'll talk about eventually called Demio, which is a similar thing. It's essentially you're playing a tabletop game, but it's very fun because you can get right up next to your pieces and turns into like more of a cinematic experience, but it's like you're playing a board game that is like very high fidelity and has animation and your characters talk and shit like that, which is really cool. But again, mechanical, right? It is a mechanical experience. And I don't think there's anything wrong with games that are just that, but I'm hoping for the moment where all of that sort of coalesces into one of these big games that have come before it. You know, a Metal Gear Solid or a Final Fantasy VII. Sure. Or
a pillar.
Yeah, a pillar of VR. I think a lot of people would point to Half-Life Alyx as one of those, but I think it is closer to Half-Life in the effect that it had on gaming, right? Where Half-Life and Half-Life 2, as much as there was like novel storytelling in there, like the stuff that people were talking about at the time was like the gravity gun and stuff like that, where it is an evolution of the physics of first-person shooters in the same way that Alyx was being incredibly inventive with how to interact in VR, right? It had one of the bigger things was that your gloves were able to, if you like looked at something and grabbed it from far away, you could pull it to yourself and it would sort of fling the item into your hand and then you'd have to physically catch it, which Red Matter 2 also has. It just has that.
Cool,
and so
cool thing to do.
Yeah, it's cool. It's very neat. And so you saw these sort of like advances in the technology, but like, you know, the story was fine. It was interesting enough. But it does kind of represent the same effect that the other Half-Lifes had, and like good for Half-Life Alyx, right? Like that's sick. But I'm waiting for these big story games. I'm waiting for the stuff that will really hit. And if anybody has any recommendations, I would really love to hear them because I'm like very open to this right now, and I would love to discover some shit that I don't know about. But I've also been trolling the internet looking for like, okay, everybody, what's your favorite VR game? What are the ones that hit you really hard? What's that kind of stuff? And like I said, I think a lot of the time you see recommendations for mechanical experiences rather than like emotional ones or something like that. Yeah. But that's all to not say like, you know, good games aren't out. There are, but I think my point is more just like I can feel that there is going to be a game eventually for VR that is like amazing, but I don't know if it's here yet.
Sure. And amazing to you would be adding the story component? Would it be like mechanically immaculate? What is amazing to you?
I think you get immaculate mechanics now. I think that's that's what you're looking for, you get that with a lot of these games, that there is so much stuff that is like so well considered and so well designed and like feels really wild to be able to do. But I think I'm looking for story. I think I'm looking for trying to push on what VR can specifically do story-wise, right?
Sure.
Because agency is something that I think is really fun to play with in video games stories, but how does being there physically change that? And what kind of different stories can you tell with that being the case, right? Yeah. It just feels like there's a lot of room. There's a lot of potential. And I'm excited about that. I think it's like, it is becoming cheaper. It's not cheap, right?
Yeah.
But I think the technology is getting far enough to the point where like this stuff is pretty believable, right? There are multiple times when I was playing this game where I like kind of lost myself in there and like I forgot that I was on a couch, right?
Sure.
Or that I was standing. Because like there are just some moments where like I'm really listening to the story and I'm really like enjoying it and looking around at the space and like just it's all believable. And for sometimes I'm like just not there, which is amazing. That's such a cool feeling to be transported like that. So I just think that the tech is close. When I was comparing my experience of playing this to the Oculus S, it looks so much better. It looks just worlds better than the last one did. And I think that's just like a higher resolution set of screens in there. The refresh rate being particularly high. I think Red Matter 2 is also like pretty well optimized for the devices. So it's definitely on the software too, but this one feels like it's like, I think this is getting close to the promise of what VR can be. And I think if you could get a headset of this quality down to like $200, I think you would kind of start to see a bigger adoption of VR and more of an interest in it. Because I think that they are figuring out a lot of the other shit.
Yeah.
I have no love for Meta or Zuckerberg's metaverse or anything like that, but I think that they are figuring out the software side of that stuff. It is easier to use. The store is very easy to navigate.
Sure.
The UI is intuitive. Also, just like total side note, the pass-through view on this headset is amazing, where like you get like augmented reality where it shows you the room around you and also the stuff that it's rendering. So there's like screens around you that are digital. Whoa. While also showing you your physical space, which is so cool.
So the real heads up display is here.
Kind of, yeah. If you could get the pass-through to look really good, then yes.
Dang.
It's great. It's really cool. I love physically grabbing the window that I'm looking at and taking it with me around the house so I can like look at, a YouTube video while I'm doing the dishes or something.
Whoa.
It's cool.
That's wild.
But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about the future of VR. I think there's a lot of cool stuff like that people can push on, and I'm excited to discover it too, because I'm sure I haven't seen everything. Yeah. I'm sure that there are games out there that will blow my mind today. So if y'all are interested or like have a cool recommendation, let me know.
Cool.
So I want to play it.
Awesome, man.
What have you been playing, David?
A lot of the same stuff. Still in Baldur's Gate, making our way through the city. The game has been crashing a lot more on us, which has been a problem, putting a little bit of damper on the game. So not playing it quite as often as we used to, kind of waiting for more of these patches to roll out and see if that fixes some of the bugs we've been hitting. Yeah. But still a very fun game. Love it. It's getting very like political Games of Thronesy in Baldur's Gate, which is kind of fun. There's more intrigue in the city, which is very fitting for the setting. Yeah. And I'm still curious to see how this all kind of shakes out. And I'm curious to see, after it's all done, how many different ways for it to end there are, and do a little deep dive on the internet, or maybe not deep dive at all and just play it through again and with a very different character and see how that goes. Yeah. So still very much enjoying that. Been very good. Still been playing through Nier Replicant. It's wild. I'm really enjoying it. Hell yeah. The combat is quite fun. It's so smooth. It's so smooth. That's such an important thing for good feeling combat. It's just how smooth and easy it is to go from one combo to the other and just to move around. Like I can't feel clunky, right? I got to be able to feel like I'm just skating around, and I feel like that is something that Nier games do very well by Platinum. When Platinum is doing the combat, just silky, buttery smooth. So still fun. And over the weekend we had some friends visiting from out of town, so we played a lot of Mario Kart and Mario Party. Let's go. Which was great. Loved it. Yeah. Tried to do the neat trick and I should say Mario Party's All-Stars, Superstars. The collection of Mario Parties that are like the original maps that have been redone. That one. I was trying the whole game to do the very cool thing you can do on Horrorland, which is take a star from each player at once from the King Boo. And I just missed it. I just didn't time it right. Oh no. For the day and night cycle. Yeah. Because I thought it was supposed to change day and night every turn, but I guess that's not true, because I went there and it was about to be my turn and it didn't turn to night again and it was daytime. And I was like, had planned it so well, I thought, up until that point. I was like one space away and I had a triple dice. I'm like, I'm guaranteed to get this. This is great. And then it didn't work out. And Mallory laughed at me. She's like, you idiot.
I think if you had done that, that would constitute premeditated murder.
You had really looking forward to it. It was going to be some brutal, juicy murder.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I ended up getting last place in that game because
sure.
I put all of my eggs into one basket that I didn't fully comprehend how the basket held those eggs. So I lost. Fell through. I lost terribly. Yeah. But great game. Love it. And then Mario Kart. Oh, there's that sax on Dolphin Shoals. Oh, that takes me to another dimension. It is so good. And when you're in the water and then you come out and he's just blasting like the sax player from Saturday Night Live. Man, it's so good. It's such a powerful sax move there. I just love that level because of that saxophone. Like the level itself is fine, but I'm really there for the saxophone. Really there for the sax.
Of course, yeah. No, I get you. I will point out to our audience that David was both in band and played saxophone. So
I'm an expert appreciator in a good sax.
Yeah. Absolutely. To be fair, the amount of times that I stood next to you, I was not in band, but stood next to you at the football games because like I want to hang out with my bro, but also I'm not in band, so I'm just going to be over here. I've also developed an appreciation for the sax.
Sax, as I was blasting the ever-loving heck out of it during the pep band.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's good. Final countdown.
It's fun.
You were there.
Yeah, always. Never delivered except for that last time on actually being the final countdown.
My final countdown. What a time.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much all I've been playing. No new games this week.
Hell yeah.
I'm committed to beating Baldur's Gate 3 before I start any of these other new games that are just staring at me, which are Mario Wonder, Spider-Man 2, Alan Wake 2 are the ones I really kind of want to dip into soon. Also, probably WarioWare. That sounds good.
I feel like WarioWare would be a good one if you don't want another full-blown video game.
Yeah.
To drag your time down, because like you can beat a WarioWare game pretty quick.
Yeah, it's a different experience than going through a whole entire new story again. That's going to be emotionally draining, like I'm sure Spider-Man 2 is going to be.
I was about to say, I would hold off on playing Spider-Man 2 or Alan Wake before you beat Baldur's Gate. You could probably get into Mario Wonder, because it's like, it's just Mario, baby. We're just jumping.
It's just Marbio.
That's Marbio.
My audio.
I like Marbio.
Marbio?
Marbio. The cigarette smoking Italian.
The Marbiolo man?
Yes. Rolls right off the tongue.
It's just Mario and Chaps smoking a cig. Chaps and nothing else.
It's a good look. Do you have something fueling your sense of podtimism this week, David?
I do.
What is it?
It's escape rooms, Chase.
Yeah, they're fun.
I love an escape room. I know it's not video game related, but man, it's still a game. We did one with our friends who were visiting from out of town. Yeah. And it kicked our ass. It was the hardest one they had, but it was just we were just walking in and it was the next appointment they had available. Yeah. We had so much fun. It's just such a great experience. I've done so many escape rooms now at this point in my life. And each one is just a fun new surprise, twists and turns around every corner. I always love seeing where a new room is just going to pop open and what new treasures and clues and puzzles lay inside. And you were talking about the puzzle VR game you were playing. I'm like, man, that's kind of the thrill I get from just an escape room. I love it. Yeah. It's so good. That sort of like physical space challenge of trying to like assess where you are, what is in here, and how do I get out? Yeah, exactly. That's cool. That's neat. What about you, Chase? What's fueling your sense of podtimism for the week? This week, in a complete tonal shift, it is a video on YouTube from this channel called People Make Games, where Timur Hussain of GameSpot fame, also sometimes guest of Into the Aether, essentially laid out his case for why the games industry should not stay silent on the like situation in Palestine and Israel and all that shit right now. It was incredibly effective, and I think like he makes a very good case for that like there are often times where the games industry like is able to support causes that it cares about and like, you know, sort of full-throatedly do the right thing. That's of course not true across every person and every person in the games industry, but you know, you do see people throwing their hat in the ring a lot of the time to sort of like come down and come together for certain causes, right? And I think he lays it out really well and is like really compelling about that. So I definitely recommend checking that out. And the call to action that they had in that video was to link to and to donate if you can to the MAP Foundation,
There's medical aid for Palestinians, just in the hope that civilians will stop being brutalized.
Yeah.
Or to at least help the people who are being, affected by it that much.
Absolutely.
Because it sucks. You really shouldn't. The civilians should not be caught in the crossfire like this. It's just unacceptable for that to be the case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's terrible what's going on over there.
Yeah. And like, I am not someone who is like horribly eloquent with all this shit, but I did just want to mention it because like at a certain point, silence is an endorsement, and an endorsement of the kind of like state sanctioned violence against civilians that's just not acceptable. It's not acceptable to treat collective punishment as an appropriate form of defense. It's just not. And so I realize this is not a, chipper and happy Podtimistic thing, but it is the thing that I've been thinking about the most and sort of like reflecting on and feeling my feelings about, how we as the gaming industry treat big events like this. So yeah, I will have links to the Map Foundation in our description, and I'll also link out to Moore's video.
Mm-hmm.
There just isn't a good way to transition out of this. So here we go. In yet another complete tonal shift, would you like to talk about Sonic Adventure 2?
Yeah, let's do that.
Hey, we're rolling around at the speed of sound, David.
I don't know the next line of that song.
Something gotta follow my rainbow is the next bit.
Oh, is this a Sonic song?
That's the song for City Escape.
I thought you were doing that Coldplay song.
Which Coldplay song sounds like City Escape from Sonic Adventure 2?
You said rolling around the speed of sound made me think of what is it? Is it Viva La Vida?
If it's Viva La Vida, I gotta check it out again.
It's called Speed of Sound.
Can you imagine if Coldplay was actually the artist behind City Escape, the OST?
I would be pretty stoked. Yeah. Dana.
That's the real Vita that they're hoping to vive.
You should listen to it.
I will. Hopefully be just as excited about playing a City Escape.
I thought we were doing a Coldplay riff for a second. I was confused. I was going with it.
It would have been a pretty strange intro to the Sonic Adventure 2
I was surprised. I was wondering where it was going to go.
And it was all yellow. Anyway, here's Sonic the Hedgehog.
He's yellow now. It's supersonic, true?
Yeah, it's true. Fuck, I walked right into it. I thought I was making a cool, totally off-the-wall joke, but here we are.
It all comes back to Coldplay.
It all comes back to Sonic, is what's going on.
All roads lead to Sonic.
That's definitely the name of the episode. So our history with this, just real quick before we hit hot stats. I played the ever-loving hell out of this game when I was younger.
Did you introduce Good Games?
No, absolutely not. Welcome to Good Games. It's a segment where we talk about the okayest games of yesteryear and gush about the things that we love about them. Yeah, just totally forgot that. Sonic
felt wrong. I wasn't ready to talk about it yet without the intro. I was like, wait, are we recording? Is this going to be the podcast? You didn't introduce
me permission. Yeah, no, we're in it now.
Okay, great.
So this is almost a hard game to talk about for me.
Like physically, emotionally, mentally?
Sonically, if you will.
Walked into that one.
I played it so much, and I would definitely describe my relationship with this game specifically as one of nostalgia. Because I feel like for a lot of the other games that I thought I had nostalgia about, I have already sort of gone back and investigated. Like, does this hold up?
You've slain the nostalgia dragon for many games.
I try to, right? Like, I do want to have an honest relationship with the things that I like and reevaluate them to see, like, is this something I still like, or has it aged well, or is something that I didn't like then something I do like now? Earthbound. But for this one, I have not returned to Sonic and his adventure.
Out of fear?
I just didn't have a huge desire. I kind of thought that, like, not that this game was like a joke, but it's just been memed to death.
Yeah.
That, like, I was like, I don't know if I need that. I'll also say up front my, like, bias. I'm not a Sonic guy. I'm not a big Sonic guy at all.
Yeah.
There are very few of those games where I'm like, fuck yeah, dude, that was a really good Sonic game. Even the ones that are like a lot earlier, I have a hard time with. I don't find them very intuitive a lot of the time. And so, like, I did enjoy this series, and so it's bizarre to have to play it, or to opt into playing it again. I will say that this was also suggested to us by listener and friend Drew Scoggins. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you, Drew.
But you said you had not played this game before.
I have not played this game before. I did not have a Dreamcast.
Yes.
So this was definitely something I missed growing up.
I am so interested in how this game lands on you.
A fresh set of eyes.
Yeah, because you've played so many video games,
I
but
played
not
Sonic
this
games
one.
too.
Yes, yeah. And so I'm very curious about how this whole thing landed and like what was good, and maybe if we're feeling brave, we can talk about some of the stuff that didn't work. But
yeah,
still, I'm interested in your take. But can I hit you with a few hot stats about this game before we get too far, David?
Yeah, please.
Hot stats.
So Sonic Adventure 2 came out June 23rd of 2001 for the Dreamcast.
I wanted a Dreamcast so bad when I was a kid.
It's so interesting, that console.
Yeah.
I think I did get one not too far from launch, which was bizarre because up until that point, like my family was very much, or at least my mom and dad were like, hey, we got to wait until this drops in price, or like I wanted to get it on sale or something. But for whatever reason, we were able to get one of these. And this was sort of my first quote unquote, like next generation console, right? Because this came out, I think it was
before the others ones, didn't it?
Yeah, it came. The Dreamcast I think came out in '98, and so it preceded the PS2 and the Xbox by like a fair amount. But it's like obviously its graphics were like a lot better than the PlayStation 1 or anything like that at the time.
Yeah,
and so it did feel like, whoa, this is a new thing, and just like such a bizarre console. Again, if you're interested in this or you want to dig a little bit deeper, definitely recommend checking out Into the Aethers episode. Their like season premiere this year was a roundup of the Dreamcast. So they played most of the games on there and checked out and saw what was good or bad about it. So I can't remember the exact phrase, but they called a lot of the Dreamcast and a lot of the games on it beautifully ambitious disasters or something like that.
Sure.
Like, there's so much going on and some of it really works and some of it just totally falls on its face. And I think that is present in Sonic Adventure 2 as well.
Yeah, I see that.
But again, getting ahead of ourselves. This was made by Team Sonic USA, which was an off-branch of.
I think I'm gonna say off-brand.
This was Sunny Select Sonic. This was Great Value Sonic the Hedgehog, a different guy.
Kirkland brand.
No, it was essentially an off-branch of Team Sonic that moved to the US. They were just like, hey, we're gonna go make games over there now.
Cool.
Bought a little office in San Francisco and made games, which I think you can see the influence of in this game.
Checks out.
But they didn't make a ton. I think they had eventually gotten rolled into different teams, but they had made this, Knight's Journey of Dreams, and Shadow the Hedgehog, the video game.
Whoa.
Which it kind of tickles me that they moved to the United States, and the first game after Sonic Adventure they made, they gave their character a gun. So
he's the ultimate life form. He's the ultimate weapon.
I don't know what that says about us, but that's the influence the US had on them.
Just these Japanese game developers come over, now they're just wearing chaps and cowboy hats. They've moved out into the country. They have a horse and stables. Full country.
Cowboys now. It's just everybody's Arthur Morgan now.
Now we need Shadow the Hedgehog as a DLC character in Red Dead Redemption, don't we?
Either that,
make a mod,
or Arthur Morgan as a game developer. I'm not exactly sure which.
I get it. I see it.
Dutch, we gotta add guns to our video games.
Damn Pinkertons ain't putting guns in their games.
The Pinkertons are review bombing our new indie title, Dutch.
They're saying it doesn't have enough guns.
They're telling us go woke, go broke, Dutch.
They DM me that I should go buy some Bud Light right now. What does that even mean?
I don't know what beer is, Dutch.
I do have a review of this game from our friends at Jeux Video, an outlet out of France, and I took their review, which was originally in French, translated it a bunch of times, one language into another, to mangle it up real good, which I will now present to you, David.
I'm ready.
They said, finally, in the second Hedgehog, we get a better and completely mature Sonic. The game is rich and varied, so you won't stop for a moment or get stuck in the dark ages. We've created a collection of the best role-playing and action games that will help you awaken and explore Sonic. And they gave that an 8 out of 10.
Awaken and explore Sonic.
A little bit of a romantic vibe there at the end, if I'm not mistaken. I do declare there might be some romance in the air.
They really like that mature second Hedgehog.
The mature Sonic. Man, I'm so excited to talk about Shadow the Hedgehog.
Yeah, he is definitely not the mature Sonic.
Who knows, David? Maybe he is, maybe he is.
He's the rated M for mature Sonic, but he's not the mature Sonic.
Okay, could you tell me what this game is, David?
Yeah, this game is a 3D Sonic the Hedgehog game. And if you don't know about Sonic, his thing is that he goes fast.
He goes fast. But he has to, in fact.
He has to, otherwise he will die. So, yeah, and it's not just Sonic in this game either. It's Sonic and friends, and Sonic's enemies and their friends too. So I think the big thing in this game is that you can play, you choose either of two like story paths. You can do the hero path. You play as Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails. I believe that's the three, right?
Yep.
And you switch between different levels of them. So Sonic goes fast in his levels.
He
Knuckles,
runs,
Knuckles hits things and can fly, oddly enough.
Yeah.
And Tails has like a mecha, like a Metal Gear like gecko that they have from Metal Gear Solid 4. He just rolls around in.
I was going to make the exact same comparison. It looks so much like
those things. The first thing I thought. So those are all play very differently and are fun. And then you have the dark, not the villain, not the bad guy storyline, but the dark storyline, which is Dr. Eggman, Shadow, and Rouge are the different playable characters in that one. And they all play, as shadows of the hero character. So Dr. Eggman is in a robot walker with homing missiles like Tails is. Shadow goes fast like Sonic does, but with a little bit more attitude. And Rouge also flies and is a little bit quicker than Knuckles, but plays similar to him as well.
It's worth noting that when Shadow moves, he doesn't run. He sort of like skates on the ground.
Skate. He doesn't. Yeah,
like it looks like he has inline skates on.
Yeah, it's very extreme sports. This game.
Oh my god, yeah.
It's X Games, the Hedgehog.
Again, it came out in 2001. Like this was just such core extreme era.
Yeah, it all checks out. The whole game checks out for extreme sports.
Yeah, that's it. You got it. There's also a final third storyline if you beat both of those.
Oh,
where shocker, the dark and the good guys figure out that they need to work together to beat the bigger bad guy.
Oh, does it happen like after you beat each of those stories? They come together and they start to fight the dinosaur or whatever you said it was.
The big lizard in space.
Lizard, big Lizzie. You can meet me at Space Station Arc.
God, there's so much to talk about. So just off first blush, like how did this game land for you? I'm so interested.
This game, I enjoyed it. Overall, I enjoyed it. The first level where you are Sonic and you take a piece of the helicopter that you have, that you've been captured on, and then snowboard down the streets of San Francisco. I've seen this game, this level mentioned before. I've seen videos of it.
Yeah,
it really is quite the thrill ride. This level, it's great. It's such a fun experience. It still holds up. I think it's just a silly, ridiculous premise for a level, but it works. It just works so well in its absurdity.
Yeah, it's so unironically good. Like I was fully expecting to boot this up and be like, look at this goofy fucking level. But like, nope, it's just fun. It's just really, really good.
Yeah. And it wouldn't work if you didn't have the good sense of speed with that level too. Going down those steep San Francisco streets.
They really don't want you to fail in this level.
No.
Like, you're just barreling through cars. You barely have to fight people in this level. You really just need to get to the bottom of the hill, right?
You gotta escape.
You gotta escape the city. It's great. The soundtrack is so ridiculous and so much fun. They like time up Sonic landing on the ground on the snowboard so perfectly with the first hit of like all of the instrumentation coming together in that song.
Yeah. Because he's like doing a weird spiral tornado thing to the ground.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And then it's just, he hits and it just goes. And it's like some weird, like it's ska music. Isn't that it essentially?
Kind of. Yeah. It's like kind of like alternative or like pop punky sort of thing happening. But yeah, it's so bizarre, especially in hindsight. Like at the time, I remember feeling like, wow, this is really cool. But because I was existing in a time when like that kind of music was on the radio and like around, it didn't feel totally unheard of for it to be here. But like, my God, does it feel strange in 2023 for that to be the soundtrack, you know?
Yeah.
It's so nuts. But yeah, I was really glad that this first level held up because I just remember it being so fun and so creative. And I think that if they could bottle what is fun about that level, you could probably make that into an entire Sonic game.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because it is really just about going fast and having a good time. You know, like I know that some of the newer Sonic games get flack for like kind of just being that, where you're just getting boosted around on certain platforms. And like, I think there's probably a way to make that interesting, but like this one just fucking rips. It's still so much fun.
Yeah.
I found myself wishing like, man, I wish the whole game was that. I wish the whole game was just like this, or alterations on this, or just any little change to this formula specifically.
Sure.
You and I were talking beforehand about like how it's very strange to play this, because I was mentioning that one of the criticisms of this game was that it had not enough characters in it at the time, because in Sonic Adventure 1, you could play as like, I think it was like 5 or 6 separate characters.
Wow.
They all played very differently. And I think that, again, going back to the conversation about like mechanical advances, that was something that was impressive, of just like, look at all these characters we can have, and they all play really differently, right? And that was a selling point. And so I think people were frustrated that you like had fewer of them in this one.
Yeah.
But like you and I were mentioning before we even recorded, I feel like this game lacks focus in a lot of ways. Right?
Yes, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, and like I like that they're throwing shit against the wall, and like I'll say that. So like obviously clearing away the best parts of this game are the Sonic and Shadow levels for me.
Yes.
They are the ones that hold up pretty well. The Tails and Robotnik stuff, I think it's close to being good, but if they could just like change the noise that those mechs make.
Oh, that was the number one thing I was going to say, was that the high pitched noise they make when you're trying to use the missiles is grating.
It's so rough. I really don't have that relationship with like games often, where like a specific sound effect is so brutal to listen to, but like it is constant.
I had the same exact reaction. I'm like, this would be a lot more enjoyable and fun if it wasn't such an unpleasant high-pitched noise when I'm trying to.
It's so loud too.
It just drowns everything else out.
And so like I think like those levels are pretty close to being good. You could modify them, and I think that would still be very fun. The adventure levels I have a really tough time with. The Knuckles and Rouge levels.
Knuckles and Rouge levels are definite lowlights of the game.
Yeah, I think it is an interesting idea, but it's just like the execution of it really leaves a lot to be desired. Essentially, the way that those levels work is that there's one area that you are in, and you essentially have to find little like shards of an emerald. And conceptually, like I can see how that would be good, right? Like a lot of Mario games are just that. Are find the hidden thing. But I think being that this was 2001, we still hadn't really figured out like camera control. And shit like that. Camera's a little brutal, which it doesn't really affect me in the Sonic levels, because I don't need the camera to be moving that much. And in fact, like I do kind of prefer when it's controlling it, because Sonic's moving so fast and in so many different places that like you handle it. You handle the camera control. It usually has a good idea about where to be, but when I'm in like a 3D space and I'm trying to explore as Knuckles, I'm almost always struggling with like, I would like to look over there. But I can't really. And for a game that depends so much on like exploration and digging things up, like that's tough. That's a tough thing to have to compromise on.
And I feel like there is a blueprint. There's already a blueprint for a game that does that sort of small scale exploration well, where you also are, like have an emphasis on speed, which is Tony Hawk. Right?
Yeah, it's true.
Like if they just made the environments a little bit more dynamic, if you let me just get some speed up as Knuckles and like not make me have to really turn it into a platformer in those spots. I think that would be a lot more engaging, and I wouldn't mind, having to go around the level and look around if it was this fluid experience. Right?
That's true. Yeah. Like if you were able to like do the same kind of shit that Sonic is, where you're like going off of jumps and doing tricks and like grinding on rails and shit.
Yeah, exactly. And they have grinding and rails in this game already, and they definitely could have done that. Just make it make it more intense or more of a focal point with Knuckles. Yeah,
it's true. Just sidebar though, God, I wanted those like soap branded shoes so bad when I was younger. They're like
soap branded shoes.
There was this brand of shoes called Soaps that had like the thing that Sonic shoes do, where it has like a little divot near the middle of your foot so that you can grind on rails.
I didn't know they were called soap shoes, but I remember these.
I think it's I think it's just the brand that like had some kind of Sonic Adventure tie-in.
Yeah, pretty sure these were made by an orthopedic surgeon to rack up business.
Yeah, to get some more people in there. I definitely would be maimed in a way that I am not if I got these when I was a child.
If I just put these shoes on as a grown man, I think my knee would start to ache at the very least.
A bone would break somewhere in your body if you even finished the lace.
Just putting it on would just be a stress fracture. Bearing any weight of any sort, full on fracture, you're done.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. They're like a more dangerous version somehow of Heelys. Where you are altering your mode of transportation with your feet.
Heelys didn't involve jumping into the air onto a piece of metal to be used.
They sure didn't. Yeah. But God, did I want one of them. I remember pretty specifically thinking that like, this is cool. This is a cool thing.
Mm-hmm. Just imagining you with your spiked bleached tips and your soap shoes. That is a look.
This is also, and like, listen, listeners, I'm being very vulnerable with you right now. I was absolutely a kid who tried to run like Sonic with his arms behind his body to try and go faster, which is like proto Naruto run. It was before Naruto was even a thing.
It's true.
Your boy was out there trying to set new records.
Gotta go fast.
I think I got a heat stroke at elementary school at some point because I was like, I thought I could go faster. What I was doing was just pushing myself harder, but I was like, I'm running faster because I'm doing the Sonic run. I felt so bad. I think I puked in elementary school.
You did the real world equivalent of taking like the turret gun and then just not letting off of the firing button, and it just
overheating. Yeah, it's not effective way to run. Yeah, so like if that colors your interpretation of how cool I thought Sonic was, like I was that guy when I was younger, in I guess like I don't know 6th grade, whenever this was,
and yet you were still very popular somehow.
It was a surprise to me, to be honest. I was not blind to the fact that this is not the shit that the coolest kids do, but sometimes you get lucky.
You gotta live your life, baby.
I was rolling around at the speed of sound, man. Oh my God. Okay. God, there is so much to talk about with this video game. I think if it was just a game about Sonic and running around as Sonic, that this would actually be really good in like on its own. I think there's a lot of caveats that I have to make about this game now. And like, I think that there are kind of games similar to this, but I just feel like Sonic never really hit it with the 3D space.
It's hard to bring the speed to 3D, I think. Like
unless it's like a racing game.
Yeah,
you know?
They still haven't cracked that code. But then you don't want Sonic to feel like a racing game, do you?
Think so, because it's still like being a platformer is part of its DNA, you know? But I don't know. I wonder if I'm also just not the person to figure this out. You know, like I think because I'm not so deep in the Sonic appreciation that like I probably won't know what it would look like to be like the Sonic game.
Sure.
I know people like Sonic colors and stuff like that, but I have looked around and I feel like most of the people who say like, hey, these are the best Sonic games, it's usually Sonic Adventure 2 is up there, right? It's 1, if not 2. Like I think that and like Sonic Generations sometimes gets some love, but 2 is really up there. And so like to think about this is like, this is the pinnacle. Right. This is the best it's gotten. I think I get that with the Sonic levels. It's pretty close. But it is really just like a thrill ride at certain points, you know?
Yeah.
It's a roller coaster. I don't think it's a bad thing though. I actually kind of like the times where that hits, I think it does really hit.
Yeah. The sense of speed is important and they give you enough control to not make it feel like you're totally on rails in this one. And I think those moments of platforming sporadically placed throughout are important, right? It can't just all be going 100 miles an hour. You have to have those moments of, okay, slow down, get through this part, smack this guy in the face, and then keep going.
This is going to sound like blasphemous, but I wonder if this is not the right genre for Sonic.
Like a 3D platformer?
Yeah, because like I've been listening a lot to Eye of the Duck recently, and they just finished up this mini series about 80s dark fantasy movies, like, you know, Labyrinth and Willow and all that kind of shit. Or
Dark Crystal.
Dark Crystal, Conan, all that sort of stuff. And one of the things that Dom Nero on that podcast has mentioned a couple times is like one of the theses coming out of that series is that the style is the substance for a lot of those movies. That like the thing about this movie a lot of the time is that it is so stylistic and so like just dripping with a vibe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like that feels kind of similar to how I appreciate Sonic games. And like we're only a stone's throw away from like why I like Kingdom Hearts. So I feel like it should all be kind of in the same area there, but I just wonder if like you could do more with not a 3D platformer, you know?
I mean, I feel like the most fun I've had with a Sonic game has been a 2D game.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to, like I was saying, I think it's just hard to do a 3D game where your character is supposed to be going 1,000 miles an hour, but at the same time it's a platformer where you have to, react to
be
things
precise.
And be precise. They kind of don't jive with each other.
Yeah.
And so it creates this weird dichotomy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in this game they do it pretty well, but I guess of like, going really fast and then slowing down, having a little platforming area and then going really fast again, that you really have to design it pretty darn well and make it feel natural as well.
Yeah.
Between those moments of, okay, I'm going really fast through here, but now I have to stop and figure something out, and then I can go fast again. And then it becomes like, okay, what's the point of the game? Is the point of the game platforming? Is the point of the game just going fast? Like, what do we want to lean into? Do we want to lean into either of those?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you don't have those problems when you're a 2D game because you don't have to deal with controlling a camera behind a character that's going a million miles an hour. The camera is controlled. It's going around with you. So yeah, I see what you're saying here, and I don't know the answer. I mean, I'm not a game designer, right? So I don't know, and I'm sure people at Sega who have much more experience with this than I have been like trying to figure this out. Long time. Like, all right, how do we make Sonic feel good in 3D? And like still feel like fast Sonic without like giving people motion sick. Maybe he has to go into VR. Who knows? Maybe that's the trick. First person Sonic game in VR. Let's go.
I don't know, man. That seems like a curse as well. It seems like I might see some knowledge that I'm not meant to see.
You'll take the VR headset off and it'll be 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, or like 1,000 years in the future.
Exactly.
And the life that I thought I've lived is a fiction. I've never lived this life. It's always been Sonic.
The gateway back to your true reality is the Sonic adventure game on the Oculus Rift.
Gotta go fast to the future.
Gotta go fast to the future, to my present.
I would love if like just for like a game jam, the Insomniac people were allowed to fuck around with Sonic. Because Spider-Man is what you were describing. I was like, that's a Spider-Man game. What David is saying.
Sure.
There are moments where you need to go really fast and also be precise. And then times where you need to slow down and do different shit. And like they made that feel so good in this most recent Spider-Man that I wonder if it's possible. I wonder if there's a way to do it in that way.
So we need to get Insomniac and Platinum Games together to make the next Sonic.
Do you remember when they made the Hadron Collider or whatever?
The Large Hadron Collider?
Yeah, and some people were like, if we turn this on, it might destroy the universe. I fear what saying the phrase Yoko Taro's Sonic would sort of chaos that would wreak upon the universe.
If you thought Shadow was was mature before, you're not
ready.
Wait
until my boy Yoko Taro gets his hands on this guy.
I mean, I feel like Shadow already has some like big Ansem energy. Did you ever get that?
One of my notes right down here near the bottom of this list that I have says, fighting the big dinosaur in space is so Kingdom Hearts coded. The final battle feels like something out of Kingdom Hearts. And yes, I think Shadow the Hedgehog feels like a very bizarre combination of Ansem and Vegeta sort of like rolled into one character.
Yeah. I see that.
And he's so popular among the Sonic fandoms. Like people are crazy about Shadow.
Really?
Like, I mean, he does look fucking cool, dude. You know?
Blue Hedgehogs. That's so last week.
God, I hope Shadow the Hedgehog is in the next Sonic movie.
He's got. I think they've already alluded to it. There's been 2 and they haven't had Shadow.
Listen, David, I haven't seen either of them, so I don't know. He could already be in this shit.
Was 2 had Knuckles, right?
He did have Knuckles, yeah.
Did he do his rap?
We got to talk about the rap, man.
We got to talk about the music in general.
Yes, yeah. It's worth taking a trip over to the music corner of this segment because like we've already talked a little bit about the like pop punk ska stuff, and like I will say that so each of the characters has kind of a different soundtrack. Whenever you play their levels,
they have themes.
And like I think that for the most part, most of them match their characters really well. Sonic's are all like so fast and like they sound like pop punk, right? Like the drummer is just going so quickly. And I think that's like perfect for those levels.
Upbeat, kind of happy.
Yeah, they're kind of happy. I like Shadows are a little edgier, right? It's kind of similar music, but they're like kind of darker stuff. But Knuckles' music is like, initially I was like, this is sick, because I couldn't hear it very well. I pulled up to Shadow to Knuckles' levels, and it's like kind of like MF Doom, kind of like Wu-Tangy adjacent.
It's like 90s East Coast hip hop.
Yes, yeah.
Boom bap, I think is what they call it. Boom bap.
Yeah, and like that's good. I'm into that, and like happy that they included it. But I did happen to pull up the lyrics for the first song that plays when in a Knuckles level called Kick the Rock. And this is the soundtrack for Wild Canyon. I'm going to play the first like couple of lines here. And then I would like to go during the sort of like second verse of this, just kind of line by line and break a few things down if that's cool with you.
I'm ready for it. We're going to genius this right now.
So Discord did crash when I tried to show you my screen.
Yoko Taro heard us talking shit, and he's like, fuck these guys.
He said, dude, not today. Let's see if this one will work. All right. Okay. Also,
this is Knuckles, and I'm back.
Okay. So just right off the top,
just the saxophone.
The person singing this song,
the sax was getting me.
The sax is great. I will say the production in the song is really good.
Yeah.
It's genuinely really, really fun.
It reminded me of, what's that song? That's sax. That's what I got vibes from for that one.
Just right off the bat though, the man singing the song has introduced himself just saying, this is Knuckles. So it's kind of confusing, but I feel like we are supposed to like know that this is the creature Knuckles singing this song. Let's keep going. I'll pause when we need to digest a few of the heavier lines here.
I've been away for a while, but I'm back to kick some butt in Wild Canyon. I shall find all the lost pieces of the Master Emerald here.
Okay, so we're doing kind of a tutorial via the music.
Yeah.
I'm going to find all the Master Emeralds here. Okay, sure.
Very straight up.
Very straight up, yeah.
I'm gonna get those fools. They want to play with my emeralds. They playing with the wrong guy.
Sure.
That's what I'm representing.
Okay, hold on. Is that a place? Is that where Knuckles is from?
He's in Echidna?
He's in Echidna.
Maybe that's like the land of, maybe that's like their like the Latin name for it. If it's like like kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species kind of thing.
Echidonia?
The genus. Those are moths. Those are moths. This is not it.
I don't think it's that. So yeah, okay, all right. That's kind of a wild one, but let's keep moving.
It's also
anyway.
giving a lot of nos to me, right?
Yes, yeah,
lot
totally.
of nos.
Never seen a Mike Hogg spit like a menace.
That's a line. I like
That
never
was
seen a
bad.
Mike Hogg spit like a menace. That's fun.
That was good.
That's not bad.
Wild Canyon fun. I gotta chase a bat, huh?
Okay, so the first
chase a
bit,
bat,
I would
huh?
say he just says the name of the place he's in. I gotta chase a bat, huh? Okay, we're moving on to more struggle
Because
bars
he is chasing Rouge, who is a bat.
Yes, yeah.
Just for clarification.
And let's not jump scare. This next line is challenging.
Yeah, Rouge, she's sexy and smooth.
Okay.
She's sexy and
Rouge,
smooth.
she's sexy and smooth. I don't know how to digest this one, David.
Chase, you've seen the drawings. You know of these.
I thought that was something that the people who loved Sonic did on their own. It's kind of surprising to me to find it.
Sega's leaning into it.
Yeah, in universe lore is that Knuckles thinks Rouge is sexy and smooth.
It's canon.
That's tough.
It's canon.
Double cross my thief. That's out for my jewels.
I mean, that's out for my jewels. Is that a double entendre?
Oh my God.
It's gotta be, right?
This feels like we're getting closer to me jumping ahead 1,000 years to living my like actual reality and out of the Sonic Matrix. I don't know if I can handle him putting in a double entendre like that.
It's gotta be. It's gotta be.
I'm feeling her in mysterious ways. That's why I stay on point like every single day. I gotta protect this place. I do it for my race.
Okay, wait a second. That saxophone line goes really hard.
The saxophone's good. I'm into
The saxophone
of
goes
this.
really hard right there. Like that just sounds like a regular good hip hop song.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the music in this game is that I both enjoy the amount of singing and lyrics there are, but I also feel like, is it better if they didn't have all the singing and lyrics in these songs, if it was just the instrumentals?
It feels like such a decision to have lyrics in there that I kind of like, I love it for that. But I do think it would maybe be a more traditionally quote unquote good soundtrack if there were not lyrics, except for I think City Escape does need lyrics. I think you do need Rolling Around at the Speed of Sound.
I just think it's an interesting decision because not only are there lyrics and people singing in these songs, but the singing is almost as loud as like the character dialogue as well.
Yeah, no. The mixing and mastering in this game is sort of befuddling sometimes.
It's just like, no, this is important. You need to hear this. Trust us.
You gotta hear.
Throw your
hands up. I would like to take just a quick detour over to a couple of Rouge's tracks. I'm going to play just the beginning part of Bright Sound from the level Dry Lagoon. That's good, man.
This is sexy and smooth, is all I'm gonna say. Do you deny this?
I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be pulled into a vortex in a second.
So yes, the answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
That's good. I
think this is pretty good.
It is produced well.
Yeah, like that does all sound like live instrumentation and like genuinely pretty well written. You know, like you could put that in a Persona game and nobody would bat an eye.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
The description for this video uploaded in 2014 of all of Rouge's soundtrack does say, yada, yada, yada. This features the stages of Rouge the Bat, the sexiest female character in all of Sonic generations. Enjoy.
Why do you have to make that stipulation?
A weird comment to include, you know, in your precious few characters in this YouTube description, but why not?
I mean, also look at the thumbnails that they have for key moments on the bottom there.
Yeah, it is sort of like
suggestive fan
art. That's true. This game is rated E for everyone, and that thought that we all just had experiencing this moment was not an E for everyone thought. I think that should be N for nobody.
The game is E for everyone, but that doesn't mean they can't control what I think. They can control the content of the game, but they can't control my imagination, Chase.
It's A for any thoughts are cool here. Point being, some of the music is actually very good.
Yeah.
I think some of it does actually hit really well. I love that when, in just a few years, the big thing that that Mario was going to do was go on vacation to go to Delfino Plaza, and that was the big thing. The lore and story in this game is like, I don't think there were limits on what they were trying to say or do. Because Sonic starts incarcerated. He starts arrested.
He sure
and breaks
does.
out of a helicopter. He then fights almost a Metal Gear in the first boss fight.
Yeah.
Gets put back in jail. Eventually you get to like the Ark space station and they're trying to make like the ultimate life form. Like that's not that far off from the plot of Parasite Eve. You know, like the shit that they are doing in this game is bananas.
It felt like they decided, let's just make Sonic into an anime.
Yes. Oh
let's
my
give
God.
It just some
it's
crazy
so
anime
coded. Yes. It feels like a shonen anime for a lot of it. I was about to say,
this is a shonen anime now.
Yeah, and like down to some really specific details. Like the final fight between Sonic and Shadow, they aren't like coming to blows. The way that they do it is that they're like monologuing with each other and running alongside each other, and then the fight that you have to do is you just have to be faster than the other one, and then every now and then you go over and like jump on him and hit him while the platform behind you is sort of like collapsing under you. It feels like such a shonen way to fight, to just be like, let's see who's the fastest hedgehog.
It's not for violence. It is for bragging rights. It is to prove that you're number one.
Yeah. I'm not trying to dispatch my opponent completely.
Yeah.
I just need to like prove that I'm the goodest boy or the baddest boy too.
Or the baddest good boy. Or the goodest bad boy.
Shadow does eventually go on to sacrifice himself at the end of this game. So like,
whoa, spoilers.
Well, like again, it's immediately undone because like he gets a game so fast after this one.
Gets a game and a gun.
He gets a gun. Sega USA gave a Hedgehog a gun in the next one. Yeah, with the same sort of decision making to include lyrics for a lot of this stuff feels like the same decision making. Put Sonic in a science fiction like missile base above the earth, trying to make the ultimate life form. Like that is out there with the story that they're telling. Like there are no other 3D platformers that were like trying to eat Mario's lunch that did that. None of them are that crazy.
No.
And so like I kind of got to respect them for being able to swing for the fences for the storyline there.
Going for it.
Like Croc never had to deal with like moral quandaries or like science fiction horrors or anything like that, you know?
Yeah. Gex just wanted to tell boomer humor.
Yeah, like he's not brave enough to like grapple with like, does AI have a soul? Is there a ghost in the machine?
I mean, you're just selling me more on Yoko Taro's Sonic.
I know, dude. It feels like an inevitability. Like we're starting to approach like free will conversations because it feels like there's not a world where that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, Nier and Sonic.
Yes. Oh man, I'm gonna talk about cycles of violence. There already are robots in the Sonic universe.
Okay, maybe this is just a long play. Maybe this is just a long con by Yoko Taro. He created Sonic from the beginning.
Nier Automata was a Sonic game, but then they got sued by Sega, so he had to make it about something else.
I'll just make about stupid androids, I guess.
It's not going to be nearly as good. We got to talk about the Chow Garden. Did you fuck with the Chow Garden at all?
I was so confused by the Chow Garden, and then I finally figured it out after like jumping and throwing everything I could within sight to play a very boring mini game where my Chow like should have drowned in the water because it's like, press A to encourage your Chow. So I just like slam it in the beginning, and then he just like loses all of his stamina and takes like 2 minutes to go across. And I was just sitting there like waiting for him to finish.
I'm disappointed in you, son.
That's just watching him struggle to wade through the water.
Yeah, it's bizarre because like I loved this part of the game when I was younger.
Really?
I was crazy about it. This and in Sonic Adventure 1. Yeah, I think it's the same kind of satisfaction of a Tamagotchi, and like also just like having such a different kind of game in this game.
Sure.
I thought was really cool because like again, variety was a big selling point for a lot of these games, and to have something that is like damn near just an indie game packaged in,
sure,
that's cool. I like that. I loved it at the time. I think like there are almost better versions of this game. It reminds me a lot of Viva Pinata, where like you have just like a space that you have to take care of these creatures in. Obviously, like Viva Pinata is much more complicated than this, but it felt familiar in a way that I got a similar sense of satisfaction of Viva Pinata. But I feel like there is good stuff in that formula that like you could definitely put that out as an indie game and it would be like, yeah, this is like a hit immediately. I feel like you get a little bit close with Ooblets, that game that I feel like I talked about that almost at the beginning of this podcast.
Yeah.
But that hit 1.0 not too long ago, and it's like maybe a little bit closer to like Stardew Valley or Pokemon, but I think you do get shades of Chow Garden in there somewhere of like having to take care of your little guys.
Shades of Chow Garden is a funny sentence.
That's also tough. That might be the episode of the title too. So like I can't say that I like really loved it this time, but I saw why I liked it when I was younger. It made sense. And especially like under the circumstance of like, you know, I've got maybe 3 games that I can play at any given moment, you know, 2 bargain bins in Sonic Adventure 2. So I think it makes sense that I would develop a lot of time into this. And if I remember correctly, this was also a game that I had like a game guide for. And so I'm sure I talked about like, here's how to make a good Chow or something.
Yeah, I did not know how to make a good Chow, and I accidentally almost like sent him away. I almost discarded him, and he had like his little like stick with a handkerchief with like his stuff in it, and he's looking all sad, like crying, looking back at me. I'm like, oh God, I don't want to do that.
I was just interacting with everything in the room, and this is one of the things I can do.
Do you want to abandon your child? No.
Yeah, I don't actually. Yeah, it doesn't really tell you what to do at all. I was sort of able to like remember like, okay, I think I have to throw the eggs a lot and that will hatch the chows. And then I give them the creatures that I found to sort of like nuzzle them. And then that upgrades their stats for some reason.
Oh, you had to get the other creatures to nuzzle them.
Yeah, you do that. You like bring the little creatures, the animals over to the chows. They like rub their face on the creature and then the little animal goes away, but they retain some of their stats. Or you can give them the vials of goo.
I gave him the goo vials. I felt like I was defiling this creature by doing this.
Yeah, like just pumping them full of HGH or something like that. Like I do not need to do that to this little guy. I will say it also helps that like Chow, that's a cute design for a creature.
It is
the Chow.
I
don't hate that at all. Yeah, which really helps. They like make little like baby sounds and stuff too, which is really good. It's good. I like all of that. Like I said, I can't say that feels like the most groundbreaking experience in 2023, but like I see where the joy is in that experience still. Mm-hmm. Let me read for you what Drew had to say because he wrote a lot about this game.
All right. Love it.
Drew said, I just feel like this game was very deeply vibey, like the soundtrack plus snowboarding down San Francisco, or essentially rollerblading with Shadow as like the race and the dodge through the city. I felt like it was super fun. I don't know. I spent a lot of time playing this game as a child. I remember like all the Tails and Knuckles levels being absolutely bad. I'm definitely curious to hear what y'all think about it. I'm pretty sure it's an okay game. And I think that like this one definitely qualifies as an okay game, but I think it is the hindsight that makes it the okay game. That like a lot of things have advanced from where this game was at.
Sure.
Because I think at the time, this felt really groundbreaking and really like novel and cool and new. Mm-hmm. But the okayness comes from it feeling old and like the camera being a problem and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Where like sometimes the games that we talk about on here that are okay, it's like, this feels pretty modern, but they just didn't nail everything, right? Mm-hmm. But in this one, it's like this feels older. I can
this
feel
is
the
not
age
a modern
on this
game
one.
design.
No, yeah, and kind of blown the dust off of this one. But I was really relieved to see that there is still a lot of fun here.
There's definitely fun to be had, especially on like the speedy levels where you're Sonic or Shadow. Those are the ones that definitely shine. I do think there is some fun to be had with the Tails and Eggman levels. The Knuckles and the Rouge levels just drag it down a little bit more for me. Not that, and I do think that it is somewhat frustrating that they could have been done better in a way that would be more, in keeping with the style of the game and what's fun with the game, which is, going fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, the sense of speed feels like it is a quintessential part of this game and of this series. Yeah. And even the Tails and Eggman parts, like you're not running very quickly, but you are shooting a lot. Yeah. And so it feels like there is speed and like the rate of attack. Yeah, it's hectic. It's really fast paced. If we could just turn down the volume on that laser beam, that would be so cool.
Just a skosh, please. Please.
But yeah, I agree with you. I'm happy that this wasn't such a bummer because I was kind of expecting it to be really bad, but it wasn't. It's fun. I'm not going to go ahead and say that this is one of the best games I've ever played. Like I see a lot of people on YouTube saying that. And I'm like, I don't know that that's the case.
Yeah. Respectfully disagree.
Yeah. I like, again, if we're applying the idea that the style is the substance here, I can see why somebody would be like, this is the coolest shit of all time, right? Because it is great and it feels very singular. Like playing this in 2023 feels like, wow, this is such a different experience and a different kind of game that I'm used to seeing at all, right?
It's true.
It is so stylish and it is so like loud and cheery in a way that like most games just are not. Even the ones that are like chipper and happy and louder, it's not like this. It's very different. But yeah, thank you, Drew, for your suggestion. This is a fun one, obviously.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Good evening, gamers. It's me, Chase, your best friend and your Sonic Explorer. I'm here to tell you about the things that go at the outro of a podcast.
Nice.
If you want to interact with us or get in contact with us in any way, you can do that at podtimism.com. That has a link to like our email and for better or worse, our Twitter. And probably the easiest way to talk to us and hang out is to click on the Discord link in there. And come hang out in the Worst Garbage Discord because it's cool there. We post stuff. There's also a lot of other good podcasts there. Obviously, Into the Aether, but also now Can't Let It Go. Another great podcast. Frog of the Week, of course, the goats. So you can come hang out and talk to all those people and talk about those shows, or just shitpost like I do a lot of the time in there. The other day, I posted a ancient YouTube mashup of Linkin Park's "Faint" with clips of Twilight Princess, which felt very good, felt very nice.
Whoa.
It was great. It's fun. So you can see stuff like that.
If you're dying for that, yes.
Yeah, if you're dying for 15-year-old trends of YouTube. So also, hey, The Worst Garbage, thank you for having us on the network. We love it. We love it here. And it's fun. I like being here. It's cool. You should go check out some of those other shows. What else? If you want to help out the show, there's a couple things you can do that we would greatly appreciate. One of them is reviewing this podcast on some podcatcher, either Apple Podcast or Spotify, or alternatively, you can just show it to a friend and be like, hey, here's this podcast. And that would do us just as much good. So if you would choose to do either of those, that would be greatly appreciated from both of us. Hey, Scout Wilkinson, thank you for your art. You've done a great job. Scout Out of the Week crushes it every time. Does a great job. Her commission's open. They got 4 slots left. Go check them out. Scout does great work, and she can make you something cool if you want her to at ko-fi.com/humblegoat. Hello, listener. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a listener this week. You work so hard for those spare ear minutes, and this week you chose to spend it with us. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Do a lot of other things in this wild world that we live in, but thank you for tuning in to us this week. We deeply appreciate your presence.
Yes, thank you.
David, do you have any gaming wisdom for us?
If you're trying to roll at the speed of sound, maybe slow down a little bit. Maybe just slow down a little bit. It's not a safe speed to travel at unless you are a hedgehog. Then it's fine.
If you are Sonic and you're listening, first, what's up? Second, you are the only.
What's that sexy?
What's up? Second, you're the only one who's certified to go at the speed of sound like that. Everybody else, I don't think you should do that unless you're in a jet and that's your job or something.
Yeah, exactly. Don't be like Chase and try to overheat your body and horf everywhere.
No,
it ain't gonna work. It ain't gonna work.
I can tell you with some confidence, running with your arms behind your back does not make you faster. It's kind of tough to hold them up like that.
It seems like it'd be more aerodynamic, but it just creates more drag, everybody.
Yeah, your arms are pulling the wind onto the more surfaces. You should just be pumping your arms if you want to go really fast.
You're just creating reverse wings.
Yeah, you're creating not lift but drag. It's pushing you towards the earth. The earth is trying to dissuade you from Naruto running.
Whoa, kid! You don't need to go that fast. Come back to Papa Earth. It's good down here.
It's all good. Don't worry about it. Yeah, don't do it, because then you might also think that you're going fast, but you're just trying to run harder, and then you do get a heat stroke.
Not good.
Not good.
Not a good look.
You can run, and honestly, you can probably run with your arms behind your back, but just don't do it so hard trying to impress all the girls who God, that could not be farther from what happened.
No one was like, oh man, I think he almost went supersonic there.
Do you think there has ever been an instance where that's the case? Where somebody ran with their arms behind their body and someone was like, what's up?
Maybe for friendships.
But what about romantic friendships?
I would say there's definitely a possibility.
It's probably happened.
It's probably happened. It's probably happened at I don't know, some convention somewhere.
Oh man, that's just the power of love, dude.
Just the power of love. Everyone, different strokes for different folks, but hey, if you find someone who's got the same stroke as you, then hit it up. I don't know how to finish this one without going off the deep end.
Falling in love at the speed of sound.
Oh, and they both they both run down the aisle to Sonic at the same time.
I hope that that's happened.
One's dressed as Shadow, one's dressed as Sonic.
If there is any justice in this world, there has been a wedding where the people Sonic ran to the altar.
Oh man. I mean, I'd be honestly more surprised if it hasn't happened.
I have to choose. I have to have faith, David. I have to choose that that's the reality we are living in.
It's the power of gaming, baby. Power of Sonic.
Anyway, see you next week, gamers.
See ya.
Bye.
TWG, the worst garbage, online.